What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. I decided that after the moving vlog, I wanted to sit down and kind of explain why we decided to move to Denver. I want to start out this video with saying if the first thing you're doing is coming to my channel to tell me to leave Denver, that we're only here for the weed, or we're here to make the environment worse, or we're just going to block up I-70 and I-25, save both yourself and myself the energy, and don't even, because what do you think I'm gonna do? Pack up my bags and move back to Florida? No, thank you. That's not how life works. But if you do end up commenting that, just know I'm gonna hide you. Might also mock you. Reasons why we moved to Denver. No. Number one, we did not move to Denver for the weed. You could move to so many other states besides Colorado for weed. Like, if that's what you want to do with your life. That's not why we moved to Colorado. It's a plus for the people who live here. I think it's a great thing. Marijuana should be legalized, but we did not move here for weed. I grew up in North Carolina, but also Connecticut. I was born in Connecticut. I went to high school in Connecticut. I went to college in New York, and I was used to seasons. I was used to the humidity. Like, I have lived with humidity my entire life, but Florida was a whole new level. I moved to Florida in June of 2013, and we lived there for almost exactly, like, I lived there for almost exactly 6 years. Scott lived in Florida his entire life, and people always told me, like, you're gonna miss seasons moving to Florida. And I was like, no, you're wrong. I'm not gonna miss seasons. Like, I'm so ready to be done with the cold Troy, New York area, because I went to college in Troy. So cold, so icy all the time, but it was like the wind chill and being on the side essentially of a mountain that I didn't like. I like snow. I don't mind snow, and I never mind driving in snow, just like I never mind driving like in tropical storms and dealing with hurricanes. So I think it was Christmas Eve of 2018. I went for a walk at one of our like local nature preserves in our town, and it was 74 degrees and I was sweating. I walked outside and I started sweating in December. That was like the common theme in Florida. I couldn't go outside without sweating. I didn't enjoy that. I wanted to go outside and enjoy being outside. Also, I had grown up and we used to do hiking and be outside and play sports outside, and it just felt miserable doing that in Florida, and it made me not want to go outside. It contributed very much so to my seasonal depression and my depression in general, and I think that in turn exacerbated my anxiety. So I wasn't going out, even though I had so many friends that like we could go out and see a movie and not even necessarily talk to each other. I just couldn't bring myself to go outside, go spend time with people. After last winter, I really noticed how bad I needed a change. And my career was going really well, and it wasn't my job that I necessarily wanted to change, but I needed a change of scenery. So last October, I knew I wanted a change, but I didn't know how bad I needed it. But we were talking with Sammy and Craig, and they were talking about moving out of LA, and you know, I started spitballing the idea even more, like, okay, well, if we wanted to move someplace outside of Florida, where would we move? And I was like, the entire East Coast is off limits. Like, we're not living anywhere on the East Coast. I need something new than the East Coast. Like, yeah, I could move to Connecticut and I could spend time with family in Connecticut. And I have a bunch of friends in Connecticut and a bunch of friends in New York, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, like the entire Northeast. I know people. We could move back to North Carolina, and I have family there, and I could spend time with family there. But I don't want to live anywhere on the East Coast. So we started talking about the West Coast and California. I didn't want to live with that. I didn't want to go from one natural disaster like hurricanes to a natural disaster like earthquakes and fires. I have grown up my entire life living with hurricanes on the East Coast, and hurricanes are predictable. Not flawlessly predictable, but predictable. You have a general idea of where they're going to hit. You have days now, because tracking is so much better, to be able to determine when it could hit. And if I was going to live with a natural disaster, it was going to be hurricanes over earthquakes, fires. They're not all the time, but they're often enough that it's a significant problem. So I didn't want to bother with it. We then looked at Washington State and we looked at Oregon, and well, I knew people there. The other thing is, like, Scott's family is in Florida. We would be at the virtually complete opposite end on a diagonal from his family. And I was like, that's kind of far. Plus, Seattle is super expensive. Rent was ridiculous. And then I was looking at what I could be making in comparison, and I was like, I don't know. I was looking at the job companies in there, and I just wasn't convinced. But then I started looking at Denver. And yeah, that was October. Long-winded, but we kind of like talked about Denver in October. And then at the end of January, beginning of February, I think it was around that time I started seeing my therapist. And, you know, we were talking about why was I having so many issues. And I think one thing is I didn't have a place to go. I didn't want to leave the house because I didn't like anything when I left the house. So at the end of January, we flew to Denver and we visited our friends, and we went hiking and we hung out. We went to bars. We tried new things in the area, and there was so much to do. It was the mountains. It was the care for the environment. Like, not to say that obviously other states and other cities aren't like that, but on top of that, we already had so many friends who had moved out here. It was making the decision easier because I had very close friends already here. Granted, I had lost touch with them because they had moved here, but it was so easy to pick back up that like friendship, and like, I don't know, it felt great when we visited. Florida does not have even close to the public transportation that Denver has. We take the train every weekend. We are always taking the train, and my company pays for me to have an EcoPass, so it makes it so much more like economically friendly for me to take the train. So Colorado being in the middle of the country, and Denver, you know, DIA is a very large airport. United Airlines is their hub. So like all of these things started making it seem a little more alluring. I changed my LinkedIn profile to be like, I'm interested in job opportunities in Denver. And so I started getting hit by different headhunting companies and just other engineering companies because I'm a software engineer. Scott was also a software engineer before we moved to Denver. And I found the company that I work with now through a headhunter. They paid for us to move out here. So we moved here in June of 2019. We've been hiking, we've been out to breweries, we've been out to Breck, we've got our ski passes. I now own a Subaru. A lot of the things that we found more enjoyable about Denver was the fact that the mountains are right there. And it's beautiful. Like, Florida is so flat. I love Colorado. I love how beautiful it is out here and how people actually care about taking care of the environment. There have been so many times that I've been to either festivals in other states or concerts in other states, or you're just driving down the highway in other states and there's trash everywhere. And that's not to say that Colorado doesn't have some of that, but generally Colorado is so much cleaner. There are compost bins everywhere. There are recycling bins everywhere. There are trash bins everywhere. And in general, the city of Denver is so much cleaner. And I really appreciate that, because some people would look at me funny when I'm like searching for a recycling bin. Some people were looking at me funny because I use metal straws and I try to be sustainable. So one thing that drove me insane in Florida was there would be these people who are just, they're assholes. Plain and simple, they are straight assholes and only care about themselves and don't care about other people. And they exhibit that by, we had Tesla charging stations in one of our shopping areas in our town, and people would block the Tesla charging station so that people couldn't park in there. They would park their big ass trucks in there because they were trying, because they're assholes, but they were trying to block it as some sort of like fuck you for trying to care about the environment. And it's mind-boggling to me. Like, I don't understand it. But those were the kinds of people that we like lived near in Florida. And I didn't want to live near that. I want to live near people who kind of have the same mindset as us. And then the ability to have seasons, to have cold, to have snow, to see the mountains covered in snow. The building I work in has a beautiful view of downtown and of the mountains. And it's just, it's so beautiful. And it makes me feel like as we were driving into Denver and the mountains just keep growing at you and there's like the clouds over the mountains, it was breathtaking. Yeah, housing prices are a bit high here. I mean, we lived in Florida and we owned our house. It's now sold. Yes. You can start saving again to apply to a new home. We'll see, probably next year sometime in 2020. But we found a place. It's really reasonable. It's a nice townhome and it's 3 bedrooms. So I have my own office. Scott has his office. We have our bedroom and I have a good salary to pay for it. We officially are a single income household now because Scott doesn't have a conventional job. He is running his YouTube channel now. The idea was, you know, he agreed, like, yeah, let's move. And I was like, okay, well, are you gonna look for a job or are you going to just do YouTube full time? And he was kind of afraid to do it. And I kind of like pushed him into it. I was like, no, go do it. Like, there's no better time to go full-time YouTube than now. When we're moving somewhere, I make enough to pay for our living expenses. So you don't necessarily have that financial stress of, oh, we can't afford this. We can. But he's definitely, like, his channel is doing better now than it ever did before, and that's amazing. And it's because we had this opportunity to move to Denver to kind of get a fresh start, and it's been amazing so far. So yeah, that's kind of why we moved to Denver. Entirely because of me. I needed it. It's been great. There's so many places to eat. There's so much better food here. Like, there's a couple of places we miss from back in Florida that was in our town. A breakfast place and an Irish pub in particular. Oh, and the sushi. Also, there's so much more life here than in the town we were in. I was out late for like a work event on Halloween, and as I was coming home, there were so many trick-or-treaters everywhere. Like, people bust them into our city. And I was like, okay, now I know next year have candy, because there's actually trick-or-treaters here. Back where we lived, it was impossible. I bought 2 bags of candy and basically had to pawn it off on whatever kids came to our house. And then I still had candy left. So that's the long-ish reasoning why we moved to Denver, how we came to pick it, and what we've been doing ever since we moved here. And if you guys liked watching this video, make sure to like, subscribe if you're new, and comment down below videos you'd like to see in the future. I know you guys really liked Reddit videos that I did with Scott, so might do some more of those. And just some random other stuff. So yeah, I will catch you guys next time. Peace.